Okay. So now let's move on to our second topic of the day. So we've got logging values on a workflow. So when troubleshooting, it's useful to have all the information regarding OR splits, distribution rules, and values, and the values handy, when investigating a workflow. And the best way to do that is to turn on log values in the element types. So this is kind of like it's more a system administration role, and it's quite technical because you need to know the kind of like table, the underlying tables of UBW, but I think with time you will get to grips with it. So we find element types in system administration. So in system administration, system setup, under the workflow folder, we've got element types. Okay, so in element type, again, we'll just take the example of a requisition. So the interface looks a bit different. Again, so if you're not used to the web, it may look a bit different than desktop. So rather than having element type details on the toolbar, now it's just a tab. So we go into details, and then again we have the list of all the table columns and the tables that are involved for this process definition. For this element type. I think my only complaint about this screen is by default it only brings you the first 20, and so if you've got a lot of tables it stretches it a lot, but fortunately you can select the show all button and that will bring back everything. So that looks more like desktop now. Okay, got everything there. I'm only interested in the detail section of the requisition, so we'll just bring back that particular table. And another web tip, so as you noticed in element type details on the web or desktop, there are a lot of columns involved, and sometimes it gets tiring to scroll right and left to make sure you're ticking the right row. So what we can do in the web is we can actually drag these columns. So because I'm looking at log value, I'd like to move it closer to the column names. So that's fine. And so what we want is we can have amount, we can have supplier ID, we want the product description and the product. Let's have currency amount as well. Currency. And let's have delivery date. So that should. So that's a pretty good start on what we should log. We can save that. Successfully saved. Yep. So that's basically it, really. So to log values, all we need to do is, first of all, identify what we want to log, and then we go into the screen and we tick what we want using this log value column. So if we just close that and bring the screen back up. So requisition. So again, notice the log value column is still where I last left it when I dragged it. So the web will always recognize any changes you do in kind of like these table type screens. So if you move around your columns, it will UBW will always remember your last setting. So that's useful. We'll just double check that we've checked those log values. Yep, looks good. So amount, supplier ID, description, product, currency amount, currency, and delivery date. So we might just do a little test. Hopefully it shows up. So where are we? Procurement. Do a requisition. Okay. So let's save that. So the requisition is saved with requisition number. So we can check it via two ways. We can log into the user and wait for the task to go through, or we can go to the workflow inquiry or items to follow up. So requisition, active items, load. So I believe it's the £500 one. There you go. So the logged values in the web, you have to hover over the step box, and then we can see the logged values. So we've got amount, supplier ID, description, product, currency amount, and currency. So that's very useful for important information at a glance. So when you're ever troubleshooting workflows, it's useful to have these turned on, at least some of them. So you don't have to dig into the system. You don't have to go to the procurement folder, look up the transaction number, et cetera, et cetera. It just saves you a lot of time in investigation, and so you can narrow it down to whether it's a distribution rule error or whether you need to look at the process definition and so on and so forth. So that's how you would see it in the web. In desktop, let's see, so similar location, but rather than hovering over, so again, it's on the map. But here you will just click on the step that you're interested in, and then the logged values is in its own kind of panel there. So you've got amount, supplier ID, description, product, currency amount, currency, and delivery date. So yeah, very useful for system administrators and anyone who's troubleshooting workflows